Nintendo's already scored a couple point-and-click adventure-style games on the Wii U eShop, with the likes of The Cave back in early 2013, and a lot more recently, Stick It to the Man. The Cave, well, let's just say that I didn't like it very much, as it just became a very slow and tedious affair, while on the other hand, Stick It to the Man did a better job at tackling the genre, in a wacky and interesting world full of oddball characters. Now we have developer Over the Moon doing something a little bit different with their own take on the adventure genre by incorporating a much heavier atmosphere, shooter segments, and even some Metroid-like qualities in their debut Wii U eShop title, The Fall. If you didn't know, The Fall came about as a result of a successful Kickstarter campaign in late 2013 where it raised 38,000 Canadian dollars, thus doubling its initial funding goal and making it quite a success, as it hit stretch goals for a full voice acting cast and yes, a Wii U version. Now you may be asking, hey Bradley, why is it called The Fall?
Well, you fall.
Yes, the game opens up with you plummeting towards and crashing into an unknown facility for some inexplicable reason. The fall renders the human pilot in the suit unconscious, so Arid, the virtual intelligence integrated into the armored combat suit, takes control of it so it can find some way to help its injured pilot. And thus the beginning of the adventure starts, as Arid maneuvers through the dark and moody corridors of the facility as it slowly begins to understand its surroundings and overcome its own self-limitations. At its heart, The Fall is very much about exploration. Drifting off with just a lone flashlight to guide your way through the dimly lit passageways, you'll be snooping around every nook and cranny to find areas of interest to interact with, or items to be collected and used in mind-bending puzzles, harkening back to a more traditional adventure gaming style. The Fall does do a fairly good job at giving you oh-so-subtle hints when it comes to the multiple different enigmas you will encounter along the way, so you're not totally left in the dark and using trial and error with all the items in your inventory. To be honest, I still did that though, but the game will encourage you to find the answer somewhere in the world, whether that be notes written on walls, the descriptions of objects, or even just using your own ingenuity. The Fall creates some perplexing and clever puzzles that are not exactly run-of-the-mill, but it's not like every puzzle was a finely crafted masterpiece, as there may be one or more solutions that can be pretty obtuse. There was one instance during the game where you have to find some way to shut a baby's whining yapper, but the game didn't do the best job at conveying the solution to the puzzle. So I found myself wandering aimlessly around for minutes on end, and ultimately I just turned to the internet for the answer. Other than that one unique circumstance, The Fall introduces some pretty interesting puzzles for you to take a crack at. Now, Arid starts out with having very little control over the suit and all the different functions that come with it, so throughout the journey you'll unlock a few different abilities to help you out, such as a cloaking device to get past sensors or evade speeding bullets wanting to pierce your metallic suit, giving it a very slight Metroid-like quality. It's something that I really enjoy when developers implement into their games, as it keeps the gameplay fresh and also leaves you curious on what new and awesome ability you'll acquire next. Probably one of my favorite aspects of The Fall is, honestly, its incorporation of combat sequences. It was definitely one of the biggest highlights of the game for me, and I continuously look forward to more shooting segments throughout the journey. What I like so much about it is that it wasn't all about running and mowing down wave after wave of baddies, but rather it included a measure of depth, with the combat being centered around a cover-based mechanic that requires timing and patience. The developer did well not to flood The Fall with action around every corner, but included just enough where it left me wanting more. The shooting can be slightly finicky though, as the sensitivity of the aiming reticle is pretty loose, so you're bound to miss every now and then, especially if you're going for the headshots, so having a way to change the sensitivity in the options could have been helpful. The Fall also makes an effort to include platforming segments, but those are not commonplace, and for the most part, the game doesn't put a heavy focus on it, which is probably for the better, since the platforming is not exactly top-notch, as it feels a little stiff. Graphically, Over the Moon did a fairly swell job in creating a very dark and atmospheric world that adds to the sense of mystery to this strange, unknown facility that you find yourself trapped in. On the other hand, the music is very minimal in this game, which works, since it's trying to build the feeling of isolation, and having a loud and rocking soundtrack just wouldn't convey that feeling. You'll encounter a low-pitched disturbing drone that gives the game a slight creepy factor with an added sense of mystery. That's not to say that the music will not pick up the pace, because it surely does, as the pounding of drums comes to the forefront during the engaging combat sequences to capture the tension as you fend off the hordes of robotic enemies. I also need to mention that I thoroughly enjoyed the inclusion of voice acting for pretty much all the dialogue. It helps you become more invested and get a better feel of the characters, and it's nice to see it being featured in a small indie game like this. In terms of its length, The Fall is definitely a short game, and by short, I mean you could probably reach the end in around 2 hours if you don't find yourself getting stuck too often. The Fall is essentially just the opening act, as this is just the first part of a trilogy, and you'll be left with a serious cliffhanger. Even though The Fall doesn't necessarily conclude and you get to see the oh so wonderful words "to be continued," I actually kind of liked how the game leaves us wanting to know what's going to happen next. next. Oh, and as a side note, I just want to mention that the artwork that you're greeted with when you boot up the game is rather off-putting. It just didn't look like too much effort was put into making something snazzy, and it just gave me the feeling that maybe the full game would turn out to be the same way. Thankfully, I was wrong, but still, me no likey. The Fall's a nice addition to the Wii U eShop, bringing with it a pretty well put together journey, harkening back to classic point-and-click adventure style games, while also adding some extra flares to spice things up. The puzzles are distinct and clever, and of course, there's the combat sequences which offered a nice way to break up the flow of gameplay and give your brain a teensy break. $10 for a 2 to 3 hour adventure with really no replay value might be a tough pill to swallow for some, so you may want to hold off until there's a sale. But the game we are presented with is not half bad. So, in all, thegamingpixelshow.com finds The Fall to be a good game. But that will bring us to the end of the review, and if you like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up and add your favorites and all that good stuff. And you can stay tuned for more news videos, video reviews, That's On Me episodes, and Bug and Bradley episodes in the future. But I will talk to you in the next video, guys. Bye!